All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. That way we have enough time to cover all of our content. Welcome to our mod for this month. We have assistive technology for safety and security in the home as our topic. So for today's objectives, we're going to have some introductions, go over what Missouri No Wrong Door is, learn some new ideas and strategies for safety and security, briefly touch on some Charting the Life course tools, and then also hear about technology solutions. So my name is Angelina Alpert. I am a research assistant at the University of Missouri, Kansas City Institute for Human Development. And I work mainly on our No Wrong Door and Missouri statewide technology task force projects. So for a brief overview of Missouri No Wrong Door, it aims to transform the way people access services in the community. And it supports individuals and caregivers to make decisions on complete and accurate information about their options. And this is for anybody seeking long-term services and supports, regardless of their age, income, or disability. The main partners on that are IHD, and Missouri Assistive Technology. And then we work with Department of Health and Senior Services, Department of Mental Health, and some others. So for our Missouri Open Doors series, the goal is to open doors to integrated supports. So this is our integrated support star. And as you can see, our two open door series are part of the integrated support star. And the goal is to kind of get everybody familiar with all 5 parts of the star. So we have personal strengths and assets. So this is skills, personal abilities, life experiences, assets, things that a person owns. And then we have relationships, which are, family, friends, acquaintances, anybody that you have a connection to. Eligibility specific supports require a disability diagnosis or some form of eligibility requirement in order to access those programs. They're need-based, typically government paid services. And we cover those in our Missouri Open Door Benefit series, which I'll talk a little bit about later. And we also have community-based supports, which are places in the community that anybody has access to, businesses, parks, faith-based communities, organizations, membership groups. And then lastly, we have technology, which can be personal, everyday technology, assistive or adaptive technology, and environmental technology, which is the session you're at today. So just a little bit on the Charting the Life course framework and tools. So this is a framework for driving transformational change. There's a set of icons and tools for engaging others, as well as networking and ongoing learning and sharing. So just a little bit more about integrating supports into everyday life. Sometimes when a person only has eligibility-based government formal paid services, it can segregate them from their family and community and not allow them to have a integrated life in the community. So our goal is to use all 5 types of the services and supports. That way an individual is able to be immersed in their community. So for home safety and security in particular, we want to think about some of the things that we want when it comes to safety and security. So this would be things like being safe in your house, being aware of hazards, being able to be home alone if needed, being able to safely navigate in and around your home, having confidence in daily tasks, and having access to supports or knowing someone will be aware if something does happen. Some things that we don't want when it comes to safety and security would be having to go to the hospital for accidents, falls, or injuries, and having nobody aware if there is an injury or an incident. So for an example of support staff for home safety and security, some personal strengths would be things like knowing when to call an emergency contact, like calling your parents if you fall rather than knowing when to call 911, knowing what's safe versus unsafe, what are those safe risks to take, but when does that become an unsafe risk to take, having money saved up for safety equipment. Some relationships would be friends, family, neighbors, having a designated safety contact, eligibility specific. There's AT program, Missouri Assistive Tech programs like the lending library, the loan programs, and their TAP programs that could help you get some of these devices. And then also Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance that would help fund it. Community-based would be neighborhood watch, law enforcement, hardware stores to get some lower tech solutions. And then we're going to go ahead and pass it over for the technology solutions for today.
So hi, everybody. My name is Kara. I'm with Missouri Assistive Technology. And then today I'm going to be talking about safety and security in the home. Oh, and then there's my information. And then I'll let Chris introduce himself as well.
I'm sorry I'm a little late. I was having trouble with the connection. I'm Chris Worth. I'm a PhD student at the University of Missouri St. Louis, and I'm a person with a disability who lives in my own home with a very supportive and patient wife who also has a disability. I'm glad to be here.
Hello, my name is Porter, and I'm a life navigator with Missouri Family to Family here at the Institute on Human Development. My educational background is in consumer economics, and my good life is having rewarding friendships and rewarding experiences.
All right, so today we're going to be covering some assistive technology for safety and security in the home. So I broke this down into a few different parts because a lot can go into being safe and secure in your home. So the first part being security in the home, and then fall risk prevention, fire risk prevention, and then just some other risks that you may encounter being at home alone. We have talked, I know we've done another mod series on digital literacy and security. I'm not going to be covering any of that, but it was done a few months ago. So just a reminder, if you did kind of want a refresher on that, it is on the Charting the Life course YouTube channel. So today I'm going to start with security in the home. The different levels of technology. So Chris and Porter will talk a lot more about like accommodations and lower tech. Some of it today even may be a little bit higher too. But this is just a reminder, there are different levels of technology out there. If you're on the lower end, it's going to be cheaper, more simple. And then if you're on the higher end, a little bit more complex, and a little more expensive too.
Okay.
And I'll let Chris just touch on that.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I need more coffee. See if your city and or town has a list. I know here in St. Louis, Julie and I are on a list in the city with the city Department of Disability, where they know we have a disability and they know if something goes on in our neighborhood to check on us. Now, that thing that goes on might be like loss of power. It might be, flooding in our neighborhood, but just be on that list. Also, my wife made sure that we were on a list with the electric, our electricity provider, and that list allows them to know that they shouldn't, even if we're late on the bill, which we aren't, thank goodness, very often, not to turn off the electric just because I use a scooter, right? And I use that scooter to really get around. I can't push myself in
Advocacy engagement team.
Sorry guys, that's my technology. I can't push myself around, so it's important for me to have that electronic connection, right? And be able to charge my devices. Introduce yourself to neighbors. Not to sound too much like the Missouri legislature, but we rely a lot on our neighbors to maybe check on us and really provide some extra support. So don't be a stranger, right? That's a very important aspect. And we also, and I relayed this when we were talking about this when we were getting ready for this talk, I relayed that my family always had we had doorbells actually installed in each bedroom. So, and one time there was even a fire, and I was able to alert the whole house by pressing that doorbell and get everybody up. So those are just some very basic things that are super important, even if they're basic, right? Porter?
Hello. So I'm talking more from a personal perspective, things that I've done or have in place. So I have an evacuation plan and I practice it now and then. And the reason why I practice it is it works out the possibility of a rough spot or a kink. Sometimes when you just do something, in an urgent hurry, you have to deal with the mistakes that pop up. So that's why I practice my evacuation plan now and then. Another thing that we have at my house is we have an overnight bag in case we have to relocate. And right now we have pets. And so we have to think, well, what about the pets? So we have a plan in place for the pets. I imagine most of you folks have pets out there, and nobody wants to leave Fido in the middle of an emergency. So emergencies, my emergency plan, I have it posted where I can see it. I practice my plan because, like I said earlier, you never know when things are going to go wrong. And the smoother you can make it, the easier it is to do it when you have to. Another thing I've done is I make others aware of it. I think Chris talked about notifying friends and authorities. I live out in a rural area, and I mean a rural area. So I have made it a point of getting to know my neighbors. About a month ago, I went over and introduced myself to some of the deputy sheriffs in the neighborhood. And they know where I live, they know about me. And now I'm on their to-do list if we ever have emergencies. So that I feel comfortable with that. Making others aware of it, like family members. If there's ever an emergency and they can't get a hold of us, they kind of have their own plan to try to catch up with us. Also, well, I guess I mentioned that, maybe introducing yourself to emergency responders. How many of you were like me about 2 weeks ago and you didn't have no power? I didn't have any power for like 18 hours. That was a real something. But anyway, I had to have, we had already put in place, I had some can openers because I was at the house for 18 hours, but I couldn't use the electric can opener. I have radios with extra batteries, so I was able to listen to the people on the radio talk about my power problem. And also we had bottled water. Like I said, I live in a rural area, and everybody on my street were hooked up to an aquifer with an electric pump. And because the electricity was out, we didn't have access to water, but we had water on hand, and I rotate it, but we always have about 10, 15 gallons of water. And something else that I kind of discovered the hard way is to have regular soap. You can have dishwasher soap, you can have other types of soap, but if you don't have regular soap, you're not necessarily going to have a chance to clean up when you're waiting for the electric to come back on. Anyway, those are just some ideas that I have put together, and so far they work. And I'm going to turn it back over.
I do. Can I add one more thing? So I want to add that the doorbell piece, so ours were hardwired into our house, but we talked about in planning for this that there's lots of doorbells that are cordless now, and I think that that's important to understand. They're cheaper, but they're sturdy, and you could put one in each room. So if you fall, like I have a tendency to fall when I'm not, don't everybody be upset. It's just occasional falling from my chair to my bed. So having a doorbell where I could reach it is something that I really thought about when we were planning for this. So that was good. Now I'll hand it back over.
Thank you, Chris and Porter. I did like hearing all that perspective because, you know, we talk so much about what technology can do. And then as you guys were saying that, you know, with everybody that lost power and, you know, we just kind of had a crazy storm here just a little while ago too. Yeah, what happens when the power goes out? And there's a lot of stuff that we are going to talk about today that has to be plugged in and has to have power. So yeah, always have backup plans and always have plans to, you know, check on your people. So, so the first section I'm going to talk about is security in the home. So how can technology help keep us safe and secure in our home? And I did kind of want to say this disclaimer too. I'm not, you know, endorsing or promoting any like specific product, specific brand. You know, Amazon's not sliding me some extra money to talk about the Alexa today or anything like that. I just want to say that, you know, just a lot of these, you know, I kind of put in here just so you guys can know, you know, what's out there, what's available and the possibilities, that there are. So, so as far as door closing solutions, you know, obviously keeping your door closed, keeping your door locked whenever you're at home, that's going to be the safest option for anybody. So as far as door closing solutions, these are more for people that have like physical dexterity issues. These aren't really solutions for people that have memory issues and like forget to lock the door or anything like that. As you can see, the very top left one, that is just that's a T-pull, just a manual door closer. Like for somebody that's in a wheelchair and, you know, can't really grab a hold of the door handle once they're out of the door. So that's just an easier access method. It literally just attaches to your door and you can pull on that. And then right below that, there's an automatic closing door hinge. So once you have that installed, it's kind of one of those like slow closers that will close the door on its own. So then again, if you're not able to reach and grab that, it can close that for you. Some other things to think about too, like a doorknob versus a door lever. So, and you've seen it at stores, I'm sure. A lot of stores don't use doorknobs because when you have, groceries and all kinds of different things, it's easier just to kind of hit the lever. I know I've done it multiple times where I just kind of hit it with my elbow because my hands are full. So think about that too, especially, when you're looking at different solutions. It could be something as simple as, switching out the different types of handles that you have. And, obviously in a house, you have a lot of different handles, to your bedroom, to the bathroom, things like that. So it might not be the most cost effective to switch out every single handle in your house. So right below that, it's a door handle extension that you would just pop on a doorknob and it acts as a door lever. So those are some low-tech solutions for closing doors. And then smart locks. So they can be medium to high technology. I put that in there just because it depends on what kind of features you're looking for with a smart lock. So I personally have a smart lock I have a keypad at my house, and I, punch in the code and it unlocks it. But once I'm inside and I close that door, it does not lock on its own. I have to, take the knob and I have to turn that myself to make sure that it locks. So it's easier. I prefer a keypad because then you don't have to fumble with the key. So if you're somebody that does have difficulty, grabbing a hold of the key and getting it, into the keyhole and getting it turned and then getting the door open, a keypad is great, but again, you have to be able to get inside and turn the knob to lock it. But there's such a wide range of smart locks. There's some that will automatically lock. I've had one before that as soon as I closed the door, it was locked. So these are great for people that have, some physical or dexterity issues when it comes to closing a door. And these are also great for people who have memory issues and, may not always remember to close and lock their door. So it just kind of, again, depends on what features you're looking for. Some of these too, you can use with smart home devices. So like the middle picture, you can see Alexa lock the front door. So that's a little bit, more higher technology, gets a little bit more complicated because that's going to be several extra steps to get that set up. But that's great for somebody that, maybe can't get around very well at home. And I know, especially when when you're getting ready for bed or you get home after bringing in a bunch of stuff from outside and you're like, oh my gosh, did I lock the door? Well, rather than, if you're somebody that has trouble getting around, rather than having to, get up and, go check on the door, especially, if you're somebody that's not the most stable, that could potentially be a fall risk, just having to get up and do those extra types of things. So there are some that work with apps too, that you can check, and you can see if the door is locked or unlocked. You can do this away from home too. So you can see did you actually lock the door after you left? You can go ahead and, control it from your phone while you're away. And then you can also have caregivers on that app too, to make sure, have a designated, safety contact person and have them check every night. Okay. Or, is the door locked? Is our house secure? And then, I'm sure some will send alerts too as well. So there's a lot of different options out there. And then surveillance systems. This is a little bit higher technology. And I did want to say this too, if, when it comes to surveillance systems, make sure that you have the permission of the person that you are wanting to keep an eye on. And, I know it's all in good faith and everything. You want to make sure, maybe that grandma, whenever she's home alone, that she's safe, that, if she does fall, you're able to check on her. But do make sure that you have their permission. Because, the goal with being safe and secure in your home is, it's independence, but it's also, privacy and dignity. So you want to make sure that, you're not just putting in a camera and nobody knows about it. Things like that. If you do put it in a bedroom, make sure that they know that it's in the bedroom, make sure that they know where it's at. Because maybe sometimes they don't want, to be looked on. So make sure that you always have their permission. I just wanted to say that beforehand. But there are some security systems. You can use them inside, you can use them outside. So the first two, there's a Mobi Connect and there's the Amazon Blink camera. I have a Blink camera in my house just to make sure my dogs are okay, my house is okay. It works with an app, so I can check, throughout the day. It was fairly inexpensive. And it was, fairly easy to set up too, once you have the app and everything. My brother has Down syndrome and he's 19, and my dad has one at the house, and he just keeps it, kind of in the living room, kitchen area. So if he does have to be away for the day, he can check in and see, did my brother get up on time? Did he eat breakfast? Did he get his lunch? Was everything okay with that? So he uses that kind of as a security measure, and it also cuts down on the number of phone calls. And my brother's not the best with texting, but rather than having to call him multiple times a day to see, did he do this? Did he do that? He's able to just check in on that camera. So again, if it works with an app, you can have some caregivers that are able to access it and make sure, that everybody gets up during the day, that, nobody has fallen, anything like that. And then, and again, it's just a security system. So it's not an end all be all situation. If somebody really needed, a high level of support in the home, I wouldn't suggest something like this. But it is nice just if you are away, if you have to be away from home, if you can't be near your family, it's just kind of a way just to check in every day and make sure that everybody's doing okay. And then there are video doorbells as well, which are great for people with hearing issues and mobility issues, so they can know who's at the door. If you pair it, with some smart home devices and some smart locks, you can maybe see who's at the door, tell Alexa that it's okay to open the door, or if you don't know them, don't open the door. And that helps, alert people that can't hear the doorbell, and people with mobility issues, again, if they're not the most stable and, have trouble getting around, maybe could be a fall risk. Anytime you can kind of limit that, it would be the safest. So if they could just have a video doorbell close by, maybe on the end table in the living room where they're watching TV, then that would be the easiest and safest option for them.
Looks like we have a question really quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute. Amy, did you have a question?
Sorry I'm late. It's because my mom didn't tell me who to expect the link from.
Oh, that's
And
okay.
I was frustrated because of it. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No
I know
worries.
you're fine.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
And this will be recorded too for everybody. So if you did jump on late, it'll be on the YouTube, on the Charting the Life Course YouTube channel, if you want to catch up on the beginning part too. And then personal emergency response systems. So some of these work, some of these will call 911 directly, and some of them will call a response center. And then they'll have like a two-way communication system. So rather than, sometimes buttons, get pushed by accident. So rather than calling 911 directly, it'll call the response center, and then it'll check in, and say, do you need assistance? And if you do, they can send whoever accordingly. I can't remember which one. One of these, if you don't respond within, you have to kind of hit like the deactivate button, because it'll detect your fall. sorry, not these. Some of these will detect falls, but it'll check in, you know, if you don't respond in 30 seconds, it will send somebody. And some of these too, like I know the Mobi Smart Emergency Alert, that will contact, you can have it set up through the app to contact designated family members or caregivers. So like Angelina was talking about in the beginning with the star, you know, a personal strength, knowing, do you need to call 911 or do you just need to maybe contact a family member? So you can have those set up that way too. Okay, and then the next section I'm going to talk about is fall risk prevention. How can technology help reduce the risk of falling in our home? And then kind of another part of that too is how can technology help us if we have fallen?
We also had another question in the Q&A, wondering if you had heard anything about Hero Home remote supports.
I haven't. You know, I know that there's a Be Here Smarto. I don't think that those are the same though. But again, I'm sure you can look up and you know, I would look at reviews because again, I just kind of like looked up you know, just kind of different possibilities and different things that people recommended. So I would definitely look at reviews and look at what other people are saying about you know, remote supports like that, because I know that they have some too that that can, you know, you can call and have people check in on you and things like that. So yeah, definitely look at the reviews for things like that too. And as far as seizures, so I'll talk a little bit about fall risk. So if there is you know, kind of a seizure where you do happen to fall, so that this will kind of cover that too. All right, and then I'll let Chris talk a little bit about this for fall risk.
If I can unmute fast enough. Sorry guys. So non-slip rug grips. We use non-slip as much as, I mean, we literally look it up on and I'm not supporting Amazon here, but anything kind of non-slip, because you know, slipping is a real issue, and making sure that you have those pads underneath the rug, that can be a real positive. One time I was trying to get up on my crutches at my grandparents' house. They had a very nice Persian rug. Well, that Persian rug slipped out from under me, and I hit my head and it was bleeding, and it became a real issue because they were elderly, you know, and those furniture bumpers. Before we met to discuss this presentation, I had not heard of those, but I ordered some that day to help, you know, because I fell recently. This was in the garden. I flipped over my scooter. They're constructing in the garden, and I hit my head. And having a bumper on that you know, that planter would have saved me a headache, right? And awareness of energy level before transferring. Now, I basically talked about this as a way to preach to myself, because I don't really, I should pay attention to this, but haven't always. Oftentimes I'll try to go to bed and not have enough energy, right? And I won't ask for the help that I need. And that causes me to have accidents, right? That are easily avoidable, right? So Just be aware of your energy level and don't be as stubborn as me, right? If that makes sense. And that's all I want to add to this section.
All right, so some other low technology for falling or preventing falls, just some different standing and walking aids. That first one, it's called Pants Up Easy. And it's kind of just like a support to help like pull your pants up after you use the bathroom. So rather than, standing up while your pants are still around your ankles and potentially tripping over and falling during that, you can do it while you're mostly sitting down, and it just kind of helps lift you up a little bit. And then some other ones, just some bed rails, again, just to have that extra support when you're standing, trying to get out, trying to, get a good, grip on your feet and everything before you stand up. Walkers too. I know people don't love walkers. I know that they don't like to make that transition to them. But they really do help prevent falling. If you trip, at least you have something extra there to support you. And then there's also smart canes, smart walking sticks and stuff that they have lights on them. Like this one in particular, it does have a fall alarm. And it has a different type of handle and things like that too. That can be a little bit more sturdy and secure. And then some visual aids too, because another risk to falling is if you can't see something, obviously that's going to be a danger in your house if you can't see it and you trip over it. So some high contrast tape, especially, where stairs end, things like that, and then glow tape too, just to kind of give you some extra lighting. And also think about your house, think about how your house is set up. Sometimes you don't need things like this. I have a habit of, getting up in the middle of the night and going to the bathroom, and I don't want to turn on any lights to disturb anybody. So I'm walking in the dark, and there just happens, I put a shoe rack kind of on my path to the bathroom, and I ran into it every single night. Not that I fell or anything, but it still, it didn't feel good to hit my shin on it every single night. So, rather than putting on glow tape or something like that, I just moved it. So think about things like that. Whenever you're setting up your house, if you get some new furniture, think about the best place to put it where it can be safely out of the way. Especially if, you're going to be walking through the dark to the bathroom. And then some other lighting solutions too. They have motion sensing lights. You have smart lights that you can work with Google, Alexa, any smart home device. And you can, say, turn on the lights. You can have it set up to, I think with each specific room, if you wanted to say, okay, turn on the living room lights, things like that. So you don't have to, walk through the dark. And then there's some fall detection devices. So that first one, it's called a Mini Guardian. And it calls a monitoring center when it does detect a fall, and then I'll kind of communicate with you back and forth to see if you need some assistance. It does have a GPS locator, and then so it can call if you don't respond, or if you fell and do need assistance, it can call emergency services for you. Apple Watch too. So if you have an Apple Watch, whenever you set it up and you put in your birthday and things like that, if you are 55 or older, it automatically sets up fall detection for you. And you can turn it off. if you don't want it or it's not set up, you can turn it on. But you know, if you're wearing your Apple Watch and it does have fall detection, so if you fall, it'll call 911. You can also set it up to where it'll call family members as well. And you can call off the alarm within 30 seconds too. And then and Lifeline on the Go, that is a wearable, like you just wear it around your neck. So that will call a central station. And I think that's one where you have to, you know, if you don't need services, you have to hit that button within 30 seconds. If not, it's going to contact emergency services for you, and it has a GPS as well. Okay, and then some fire risk prevention. How can technology help reduce the risk of fires and burns in our house? So, so I'm not really talking about a whole lot of, you know, fire prevention in the kitchen, just because on the last mod series, I talked a little bit about that. So again, if you do need a refresher, that is on the Charting Life Course YouTube channel. So some other things I found, I just thought that especially the first one was really cool. The fire extinguisher ball. So, you know, those fire extinguishers, you know, some of them can be heavy and you've got to lift it with one hand and, you know, kind of clamp down and hold the hose. And that's a lot to do. So this fire extinguisher ball, they have some that are in a stand. So you could have it next to where you're cooking or, you know, where you could potentially have a fire risk. And if it like detects smoke and fire, it'll just, you know, extinguish on its own. Or you can grab it and, you know, if there's a fire somewhere else, you can grab it and you can just throw it and then it'll extinguish once it hits the fire. So great for somebody, you know, that can't really lift, you know, the fire extinguisher and do all those extra parts. So I just thought that those were really neat. And if you do have it in the stand too, then you don't even have to touch it, which is a great option. Another thing is a fire extinguisher spray can, or just using a smaller fire extinguisher. Again, keep in mind that if you're using something like a spray can or a smaller extinguisher, it's not going to work great for bigger fires. So the smaller the can, the less it's going to be able to do. But a smaller can or a spray can is a better option than, you know, having a giant fire extinguisher that you're not able to access independently. So just kind of keep some of those things in mind. And then some automatic turn off devices. So one of them is called a cook stop. It works with sensors, like motion sensors. So if you've left the kitchen, it's going to start a countdown. And it'll turn off if you don't come back and if it doesn't sense your motion again. The burner alert, that's for like the knobs on your stove. So as soon as you turn it on, it blinks like at certain intervals, like maybe every 3 minutes or something. And so just so you're aware, and I also think about this too for, you know, somebody that does have a visual impairment and maybe they aren't sure if the stove is still on rather than having to, you know, touch it or anything like that. This will, you know, kind of alert them. And it can work with Alexa as well and let you know that the stove is still on. And it'll beep. And I think it even gets, you know, faster and more frequent the longer that it's on. So, you know, if you're done cooking, if you're sitting down in the, you know, dining room and enjoying your meal, it'll keep blinking or keep beeping. And it also blinks too. So for somebody that does have a hearing impairment, it will blink as well. Just to alert you that it's still on. So then you can go turn it off. And then there are smart plugs that can work with smart devices. So so you know, kind of see that there's an extra piece on that plug, on the outlet. So you plug it into that and it can work with Alexa. You have Alexa, you know, turn on certain lights, coffee machine, things like that. And you can have them turn it off too at certain times, or you can control them, I think from the app while you're away, just to make sure that everything is off. And then some different fire alarms for those that are deaf or hard of hearing. So there's a HomeAware and HomeAware can alert you for several different things. They do have like doorbells. They have baby cry signalers, phones and things like that. But they also have a fire alarm and like a carbon monoxide detector, and it will flash to alert you, things like that. And then there's the Bellman Smart Fire Alarm. Believe that one works with an app as well, and it has a bed shaker. So again, if you're sleeping, any fire alarm that can flash for those that are deaf or hard of hearing are great. But if you're asleep and you might not wake up with that flash, a bed shaker is also a great option, just to have that extra safety. Same with the Safe Awake, that extra piece right there, that's the bed shaker. And then some of them work with apps as well. So if you do have a fire alarm going off, it will alert the app too. So then you may not even necessarily need to be around that fire alarm. You just get it to your phone. And then some other smart fire alarms. So the Google Nest, so it'll voice prompt what's happening. So again, I know, having alarms and that could be very disorienting, especially if you are somebody with a visual impairment. So it'll tell you what's happening and where it's happening. So again, it takes a little bit of work to set things up like that. But once you get it set up, you can, have it set up for different locations. So it can say, okay, there's a fire in the bedroom, things like that. And it'll alert you before the alarm goes off. So hopefully you're not quite as startled. And then it has auto testing and battery monitoring. So, a fire alarm is going to be on the ceiling. It's going to be, kind of hard to access unless you get up in a chair or in a ladder, which again, that could be a fall risk too. So, so it does have auto testing and battery monitoring, to let you know. And I think some of these batteries too last for like 10 years. So they can continue to function or let you know if it is running low. The Google Nest also has a motion sensor nightlight too, which I think is great for all kinds of different things. The Xsense fire safety system, again, it has a sensor and it'll self-check its battery. And then it'll notify an app if the alarm is triggered. So again, if you have a safety contact, or if you're just utilizing your phone yourself, even if you're away, it'll let you know if an alarm has gone off. And then the Kitty smoke alarm and carbon monoxide detector, it has voice alerts, it has remote access notifications. So again, you can have it set up to a safety contact, so they could get those notifications. And it also has a feature for false alarms too, because that can be an issue. And I talk about all of this high tech systems. I mean, these are great for people who have visual impairments because of the voice alert, people who have mobility issues and can't get up and check the battery. But somebody came into our work the other day and they were checking all of our fire alarms, and they have what Scout referred to as a pokey stick. And it was like literally just a stick that they went and they pressed the button to test it. They didn't have to get on a chair or a ladder or anything. So I was like, oh my gosh, like the most, we talk about some complex things, but it's like literally the most, simple stick just to test. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
Amy, did you have another question? I see your hand up.
Yes, I have two parts of a question, like one that's related to both of these. Well, actually technically three. I was the one who asked about the thing with if you have autism, what they have for both disregarding, because I like to burn cheese in the microwave to eat. And then the other thing is like because of sensory issues with autism, as well as if they have something similar to Google Nest that works with Alexa instead.
Like, are you talking about like the Echo? Because I think Echo
Yeah.
is like yeah. I mean, Echo is the only one that I know about. I know one of these other ones. It may have been the kitty alarm. One of them does. It's not an Amazon product, but it does work. Work with Alexa. But I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, and then
But
what do you do to disregard if like you are purposely burning something in the microwave because you like to eat burnt cheese? Like that's what I like to do, and I was wondering how many of the ones have disregard as well.
I know that the Kitty Smart alarm does, because it has like a feature for false alarms. But I'm sure since so many of these other ones work with apps, it might still go off. But you could probably deactivate it from an app and let them know that it's a false alarm.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right. And then just some other risks. So these, again, I don't endorse any specific product, but these are all from the same product. Just while I was doing research, it's called Mobi Connect. And they just had so many different devices that I thought, things I hadn't even thought about. But if you do have somebody that does, maybe have some health issues and they still want to be independent, still want to live on their own, these are some different devices that can help with that. So the first one is a smart pulse monitor. Again, all of these, they work with an app. I think a lot of these have voice alerts too, or voice prompts that will read it to you. So it can tell you, your pulse. You can keep track of it too. So again, do you need a safety contact that can also access the app too to make sure, sometimes I know as we get older, we can get stubborn too. And so, if there are some issues, maybe blood pressure is getting too high, things like that. Maybe you can have a family member check in and say, okay, it's getting too high. I think we need to, go somewhere.
My blood pressure usually, if it changes, it'll get too low because of POTS.
Oh yeah, yeah, that too.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great thing just to keep an eye on, and have your family keep an eye on as well, because again, that could be another fall risk too. And then a smart thermometer as well. Yeah. And then a smart thermometer as well. It again works with an app, and then it'll speak out that temperature too. It also has like a visual, like a light that kind of coincides with it. So if your temperature's good, it'll be green, and then if you are running a fever, it'll turn red. So I kind of like that visual cue too. Okay, and then just a few things to consider. I'm going to kind of fly through some of this. So just think about how you can have or get your device. Go back to that star. How could you fund that device? Where can you go to learn how to use it? Who can you utilize? Family, friends, YouTube videos, and then maintaining the device. A lot of these, do they need to be charged? Do they need to have batteries? Do you need to make sure that you have some of that extra stuff around in case anything does die? Just keep those things in mind, because once you do have technology, it's not, you don't just have it and it's good forever. You need to kind of stay up on it. And then I won't run through this part, but the slides will be emailed to you if you do need to look for options to fund devices. And just some of our programs too. We have the TAP programs. We do have device loans. I will say a lot of the stuff that I was talking about today, we don't necessarily have, available for loan. But you could always check. Some stuff we do have. And then there's financial loans. We do have some financial loans for assistive technology. But again, if you ever have any questions, any guidance, we're always happy to help.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go through some other announcements. I'm going to also send out a closing poll if you wouldn't mind filling that out as I go through these last things. And if anybody has any final questions as we're going through here. So our technology series, the next one will be August 23rd from 12:30 to 1:30, and that's going to be on supports for aging. And then as far as our benefit series goes, this is the new series that we started just in May, so it's still pretty new. August 8th is our next one there, and that's going to be talking about dual eligibles and what it means to have both Medicaid and Medicare, and what are the benefits of having both, and things like that. And those are the second Wednesday of every month from 12:30 to 1:30. As Kara has mentioned, both series do get recorded and posted to the Charting the Life course YouTube. So you can go back and watch any of the ones that we've hosted previously. And then that, as well as a PDF of the slides, gets sent out in an email after the conclusion of this. We also house the Missouri Family to Family Resource Center, as Porter said earlier. There's monthly Good Life groups, which are interactive peer learning collaboratives. So that's for like hands-on learning, building the capacity of self-advocates and family members. We also have the Charting Life course and Family to Family quarterly stakeholder meetings. The next one is coming up on August 10th, and there's going to be some information regarding that sent out shortly. And then we also have Charting Life course training workshops. So this is going to be on the information that you saw in the beginning about the tools and the framework if you wanted to learn more about that at lifecoursetools.org. We've started doing free monthly Life Course Foundations webinar, which are a really good starting place to learn about the framework and tools. And those are super cool because we have a different ambassador do the overview each time. So you get a little different perspective each time. And those are also recorded and posted to our website. And then we have some more in-depth trainings, our skill building series and our ambassador series, which are posted on our website as well. And then that's it. If you had any other questions outside of here, needed to contact either Kara or I, and we can connect you to Chris or Porter if anything was needed there. All right. Thank you, everybody.